Hey everybody, Dave here. Today I want to talk about gold and silver and should it play a role in your investment and your portfolio? Should you invest in it? I will give you my take on that, so let's go and get started. So, I'm not trying to be controversial and I'm not trying to make this political. Let's try to keep that out of this. I know it could get spicy down in the comments and, with this topic, it is probably, a pretty controversial topic, but, years ago, back in the early 1900s and all that, we were in what's called a gold standard. So I'm not going to really read these articles or anything, but I will link these down in the description if you want to talk, read about them and find out, what's better, the fiat currency we're in now or the gold standard. They both have pros and cons, and here's all the list of pros and cons here, but so basically in 1933 or so, I think we got rid of the gold standard and then totally cut the ties of the gold standard, or any link to gold, I should say, in the early 1970s. So let's go ahead and take a look at the gold chart here. So this is going back to 1973. The gold price was like 80 something, dollars an ounce, and up to today's price, which is $1,500 an ounce. Okay, so that's not a bad investment, right? So I remember owning some paper gold, or I guess electronic gold, I should say, back in 2005, and I remember specifically that just perked up overnight, and I was like, wow, this is going up real fast, what a great investment, blah, blah, blah. And then we hit that big old bubble from the, Great Depression, or whatever you want to call it. And then it just, was a bubble and then crashed and popped. So what was the big reason for this big increase? Well, fear, inflation. The biggest one was fear, of course, but and it's a hedge against inflation, right? So, if you want to know what the inflation we're talking about in the fiat currency and one of the negatives in not being on the gold standard, well, let's go to this website. Okay, here, look at this. $22.5 trillion in debt, right? So you don't have that on a gold standard, okay? And look at this down here, M2 money supply, right? Look at that. Just 19 years ago, it was $4.8 trillion. And, 19 years later, 2019, $14.8 trillion, right? So we're just printing money, okay? And they devalue the money, right? So that $22 trillion, give it 10, 20, 30 years or whatever, that $22 trillion is going to be nothing. You're going to think $22 trillion is a lot of money now. So don't underestimate the power of the Fed. They do have a lot of control, and that is kind of a negative in my opinion. Whether or not it's, how you want to look at it, they have a lot of control, and that kind of can rip people off through the monetary system, through inflation and devaluation, and that's where it can get kind of spicy. So let's talk about whether or not I would invest in gold and silver. I do own silver, by the way. I bought it in 2015. Luckily, I did not buy it at the top of the market, which is around 2011. I was eyeing it. I was screwing around with the electronic silver at that time. I did lose a little bit of money in it, but I didn't buy physical silver until 2015, right around these prices around here. So I think I have an average around $17.30 or so. Would I buy gold and silver? That's the question, right? Is it part of my portfolio? Let me just tell you what Buffett's stance is on gold and silver. If you're not familiar with what his stance is, I will go ahead and link a video in the description. So if you took all the gold in the world, it equals a cube, basically 67 feet by 67 feet and 67 feet tall, okay? That's all the gold in the world at current value of 2015 is when his video was posted, and he's very open about this, by the way. It was worth about $7 trillion at those 2015 prices, all right? So what he says is he would rather own all the farmland in the U.S., which is basically half the continental U.S., plus 7 ExxonMobils, plus he would still have $1 trillion of pocket change just to walk around and spend as he, desires and whatever he wants, all right? Or, you could own basically a third of all the stocks in the U.S., okay, which is, I guess, the current value at that time was like $21 trillion, so you can own a third of that, right, $7 trillion. So, which all those best companies in the United States would produce for you. So his thought is gold is a speculative. It's really just one of those types of things where you're hoping somebody's going to pay you more for it than what you paid for it, right? Just like art, okay? Just like a lot of other types of things that are speculative. Cars, for example, right? Could be, exotic cars and whatnot. Can be an investment. They can go up in value, but theoretically, right, they don't produce anything for you, right, other than, going to 0 to 60 in, 3.5 seconds or something, right? Maybe that's exhilarating, but it does not produce any money for you at all. It just sits there and looks pretty, and that's what his basic argument about gold is. I have a 67-foot cube, and it sits there and looks pretty for you. Yeah, you can sit there and you can touch it. You can put a sleeping bag on top and sleep on top of it whatever you want. Whatever you want to do with it. You can't kick it around because it weighs too much, but it does not produce anything for you. So, you're really relying on people paying you more for that than what you paid for. So that's what his argument is. He would rather own all the farmland, 7 ExxonMobils, and still have $1 trillion just laying around to spend on lotto tickets or whatever. So, and I totally 100% agree with that. After owning silver for 4 years now, that has not done a dang thing for me, has not produced 1 penny for me. So gold and silver will not be playing a part of my portfolio going forward unless it gets to be super cheap. And I mean, we're talking super cheap, $250 an ounce for some gold. And, silver getting down to the $5 and $7 range, which I don't think is going to happen. And, if that doesn't happen, that's fine. So I'm okay with that. I'd rather own something that actually produces for me. So that is my stance. I pretty much take Buffett's stance. And, I know that lately you're going to have a lot of more commercials coming out. If you watch CNBC, you've probably seen William Devane and Roslyn Capital and all those people on TV talking about owning gold and silver. And they got a lot of people in 2009, 10, 11, 12. I saw those commercials all the time. They got my brother, so they did not get me, luckily. And just don't fall victim to that. So lots of fear going out there. These prices will go up. If you wanted to buy it, I think now it would be a good time to buy it, given the yield curve inversion. So if you're going to buy it, I think now would be the time to buy it. So with that, let's go ahead and end this video. That's my take on gold and silver. Go ahead and let me know in your comments down below, what your take on gold and silver is. And I'm kind of curious to know, is it a part of your portfolio? Is it going to be part of your investment plan? So do you already own it? And anyways, go ahead and like and subscribe if you got any use out of this video. And we'll go ahead and see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.